Good morning. I'm so glad that you're here to spend the weekend with me. Let's get some coffee going first. As I'm looking out onto our property, I'm both overwhelmed and excited about these fall leaves on the ground because it'll be my first time ever raking leaves, and I'm going to be doing this with my husband, so it's not going to be too intimidating. Both my husband and my daughter are both fast asleep, so I'm going to have a little bit of quiet time in our reading room. This is our little gas-powered fireplace, and I love this, but it just puts off so much heat, so I'm not going to use it this time. Here's my cozy blanket that I love to snuggle up with, and now that I have my coffee, I'm going to sit down and just enjoy a little bit of me time. I think self-care gets a bad stigma among Christians because we tend to think that it's unbiblical and selfish, but actually in the Bible, particularly in 1 Corinthians chapter 3 and chapter 6, there is a lot of emphasis on self-care. We are to look at our bodies and our mind as the temple of God. If we take that word temple and treat it for what it is, a place of worship, then it would make sense for us to see our bodies, our mind, as a place of worshiping God. And so we ought to take care of that temple. 3 John chapter 1 verse 2 says, "Beloved, I pray that all may go well with you, and that you may be in good health, as it goes well with your soul." There are a lot more scriptures that talk about self-care and taking care of our health to the best of our abilities, and that includes our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health. But it would take a whole nother video just to go over those scriptures, which I may do, so keep an eye out for that. I'll end my thoughts about self-care in this video with this. It's not selfish if you have the right intentions. Taking care of ourselves to be a better wife, a better mother, etc., all unto the glory of God. The best way to start the day is to be thankful for each and every little blessing in your life, as much as you can think of, and also to be more keenly aware of God's sovereignty and therefore His presence in my life. And I do that mostly through studying scripture, but I also do it through supplemental reading, like the book that I'm reading right now, Risen Motherhood. It's a great little book that emphasizes the gospel in every aspect of motherhood, and I love reading this book over and over just to refresh my mind and set myself up for a day where I am just completely given of myself in sacrifice to my family. It doesn't mean that I do it perfectly, but I at least try to prepare my mind and heart for that mission, the greatest mission of ministering to my family through the work of my hands, through the way that I speak, through everything that I do as a wife and mother. So it's 7 a.m. in the morning, and this is the time that Grace and I always start our mornings every single day. She gets her diaper changed, she gets some milk, and then after that, we go into our activities. Usually that consists of story time, tummy time, some other baby exercise activity, and if it's nice outside, we go for a morning walk. Now, because everybody slept in this morning, I got to actually enjoy quite a bit of quiet time, me time, whatever you want to call it, first thing this morning. But on a typical day, the time that I get my quiet time and Bible study in is when she's taking her big 2-hour nap in the afternoon. When Grace is having her first bottle of the day, as she is here, that's when I quietly, in my mind, pray to God and practice thankfulness to Him. And now we're in Grace's nursery, and we're about to get into our morning story time. The Prince's Poison Cup by R.C. Sproul. We read this book a lot, and actually we read lots of books several times each day because she just doesn't have that many books, and I figure She doesn't really understand the story just yet, so it doesn't really matter if we read the same books over and over. I personally don't get tired of reading the same books to her over and over because, first of all, they're great stories. Second of all, they're books mostly gifted by friends from church, and so they are very sentimental to me. Another reason I don't get tired of reading the same books to her over and over is because I personally believe that her hearing the same words over and over again would actually be good for her communication and language skills as she gets older. Kind of like reviewing things for tests at school. And yes, in case you're wondering, I am planning on fully homeschooling her. I understand it's not for everybody, but if it is something that you want to do, there is plenty of research that shows homeschooling is very beneficial, even if you're not a Christian. I'm really thrilled that Grace, for the most part, can sit through an entire storybook and not fuss or get bored. After reading our story, I take her arms and legs and I just have her move in while I'm singing to her and making big facial expressions to her. Here I'm just doing a variety of activities with Grace, playing with her toys. She's really fascinated with observing and feeling different textures, so I let her explore that. Another activity we do is toy tracking with her eyes. And another activity that we've recently been doing is having her practice sitting up. Since she's only 5 months old, I'm not too concerned with her sitting up straight. I just want her to balance as much as she can and get some practice in sitting in this tripod position where she has her legs spread out and her hands in the middle of her. Next activity we're doing is called baby planks, and this is supposed to help strengthen her arms and put more of her front weight on her arms. And our final activity for this wake window before her nap is her favorite, tummy time. Before I became a full-time stay-at-home mom, I was a nanny, and I was also a preschool teacher at a daycare, so I worked with children preschool age and also infants at the church that I was in South Florida. And my daughter is the only baby I've ever met that actually enjoys tummy time, which I am super thrilled about. She hasn't figured out how to roll onto her back from her tummy yet, so I try to help her out. But she is really good at rolling onto her tummy from her back and initiating her own tummy time, just like she's doing here. Before I continue showing you what we've been up to this past weekend, I wanted to back up to 2 weeks ago, before all the leaves fell, so that you could see all of the beautiful fall colors that were on the leaves just a little bit ago. This is footage from our morning walk a couple of Saturdays ago. And I'll also show you what else we've been up to that particular Saturday, just for fun. Here we're driving down a tunnel that actually takes us through the mountains in order to take us deeper into the mountains. It's almost the evening time, but as you can see, there are plenty of cars that are driving through here just to get a look at these beautiful fall colors in the mountains. There are rivers in Colorado, like the one here beside us, that runs as expansively as the actual mountains do. And here's yet another tunnel, and another, and our last tunnel. Every year in the fall, my husband and I take this drive into the mountains and just enjoy being together and enjoy the scenery. But this year, it's extra special because we have our daughter with us too. We've driven this little stretch of road in the mountains a couple of times now, and every time we do, we always discover something new to stop and explore. Last year, it was a tiny little farmer's market hidden in the mountains. It was owned by a little old lady, and she sold us a few small pumpkins some fresh dill, and other vegetables. I think we also bought a fresh-made blackberry pie from her as well. It was delicious, I remember that. We found this little pumpkin and peach stand too, which we've never been to before, but we checked it out for a minute and it just wasn't worth it. The fruit was not that good and it was way overpriced, so we decided to turn around from there and go home. Plus, we have this sweet little girl to get home and get to bed. So let's fast forward and get back to what we were up to the weekend before Thanksgiving. It's 11 a.m. by now, and we're 15 minutes away from Grace's big 2-hour nap for the day. We're just kind of hanging out, and of course Grace wants to do more tummy time and make faces at herself in the mirror, so that's what's going on right now. And here we are just getting our sitting up practice in and watching TV together as a family. We don't do a whole lot of screen time with her at all, actually, but we do watch a lot of news together, the three of us. It's dinner time, and I am getting ready to make 2 separate meals, actually. I don't usually do this, but my husband is really in the mood for chili, and I was craving a salad, so here we go. I'm starting off with putting ground beef into my Instapot on the sauté setting. The spatula that I'm using right now is from Pioneer Woman, and I am so in love with this spatula. It's made of olive wood, it's got grooves in the handle, so it's easy to flip things over and just maneuver it. The grass-fed ground beef that I have browning here has been de-thawing at room temperature in the kitchen sink for about 2 to 3 hours. I do this sort of on-the-fly meal planning, if you could call it that, where I figure out the morning of, usually right when I get my baby up for the day at 7 a.m., and I think to myself, what sounds good for dinner tonight? And then I go over that with my husband and make sure he's in the mood for that too. And then once I decide what we're having for dinner, I kind of take a guess of when would be a good time to pull the meat out of the deep freezer for de-thawing, and I do that. At this moment, my husband was actually saying that baby Grace was missing me, so there they are, and I guess they'll be watching me cook for a little while. Everyone kind of makes chili a little bit differently, and I am no different. With this personal recipe of mine, I like to add Worcestershire sauce. I also add a little bit of salt and pepper. I don't add very much salt, maybe just a dash or 2, but my husband really likes salt, so I season the chili the way that I like it, and then I give him the salt and pepper shaker if he wants to add a little more to taste. You might notice my going back and forth between the pot and the spice cabinet, other cabinets, and just doing other things. I like to clean as I go. I personally find that it drastically cuts down on the cleanup time after dinner's over, less dishes piled in the sink, less things to put away, and more time with my family or doing whatever it is that I want. And now I'm just adding a little bit of oregano leaves into the chili. I have some leftover black beans and some leftover fresh parsley from last night's dinner, so I'm going to go ahead and add that into my chili, just so we're not being wasteful. It all tastes the same anyway, when it's all mixed together. And now I'm opening up a little can of tomato paste, and I'll be adding a heaping tablespoon of that. And now for some ketchup. Now we're adding some tomato paste, just 1 heaping tablespoonful, and I will show you what I do with the rest of the can of tomato paste later. So let's go ahead and stir all of those ingredients together. The Instapot is still on the saute setting, and after everything is incorporated very well, I am going to show you my secret ingredient for my chili recipe. Da-da-da-da! Ground cinnamon. Just a little sprinkle of that, about 1/8 of a teaspoon maybe if I were a measuring kind of girl. And just for a little extra kick, crushed red pepper. Oh! Little sneeze. And a little bit of cayenne pepper. I try not to add too much because I'm not a big spicy girl. About maybe 1/2 of a teaspoon. And the cayenne pepper, along with black pepper and salt, is one of the things that I leave out on the table for my husband in case he wants to make it a little bit spicier. I like to add a little bit of chicken broth for a little bit more of a soupy consistency and also for some extra flavor. Today I'm in the mood for more soupy chili, which my husband doesn't mind at all. But sometimes I'm in the mood for a thicker chili, and in that case I do a flour, water, chicken broth slurry, and I add it in after the chili is completely cooked right before serving. I just stir it in there and keep stirring until it gets nice and thick to the consistency that I and my husband like. Now I have the lid locked on the Instapot, and I am taking it off the saute setting and putting it onto the bean chili setting. As I mentioned earlier in the video, I'm making 2 separate meals, so I have the chili going for my husband, and I'll probably have a cup of chili myself, but my main course is going to be a salad, and before I get into that, I'm just going to show you real quick what I do with the can of tomato paste that's left over, what I didn't use for my chili tonight. So I'm just taking a little Ziploc bag and I'm going to dump all of the remaining tomato paste that's in the can into the Ziploc bag, making sure to get as much of the tomato paste into the corner of the bag as possible so that it's easier once it's frozen to have it all in one spot, and therefore easier to break off a piece as needed. So why not just put the can straight into the refrigerator and just use that as you go? So growing up, my mom had always been sort of a health nut, health guru, if you will, and so at some point growing up, she told me not to put an aluminum can into the fridge straight away because there are chemicals in the can that would leach into the food, and so it's important to transfer whatever you're going to refrigerate from the can into a bag or something like that. I don't know why plastic Ziploc bags are better than aluminum cans, but my mom told me so I'm going to do it. And this entire time I've been cooking, guess who has been my audience? Just you wait, girly girl. You are going to be heavily involved with me in the kitchen when you get bigger. Now while the chili is on its last leg of cooking, I am going to prepare my salad, starting with the salmon that's going to go on top. This is salmon that I had already defrosted. There was a second piece that I started defrosting this morning and I ended up having for lunch. So this is actually a salmon kind of day. I've got a little pan on the stove set on high heat, and then I've got 2 tablespoons of avocado oil in the pan. Once that oil starts to ripple a little bit, I turn the heat down to about medium-high to medium, and then I place the salmon on the pan, skin side down. Add all the seasonings to the flesh of the fish, Try saying that 2 times fast. After adding all the seasonings, I check the skin of the fish to make sure it's cooking properly, and it's a little underdone still, of course. It's only been a couple minutes, so I'm just going to let that rest for a bit and let it fry and get nice and crispy and brown. At any point before you check the skin again, you can add a little bit of butter just for some extra flavor and to help get that salmon skin to get really nice and brown. And now to get that butter flavor onto the flesh of the fish, say that 2 times fast again, I am going to flip the salmon and make sure to soak in all that butter. At this point it's been about 10 minutes, so I'm going to turn the heat down from medium-high down to medium, and I'm going to sort of sear all of the edges of the salmon to make sure that it all evenly cooks, and to also get a nice crust on all of the edges too. Now we're back on frying the skin. You can see that the flesh side of the salmon has a really nice browning to it, so it's going to have really nice flavor. I really enjoy sharing these kinds of things with you. If you like this sort of vlog type of video where I'm narrating and there's music in the background, go ahead and give it a like and leave me a comment. Let me know what else I should do videos about. Now we're back to our chili and we're going to release the pressure off the Instapot. While that's doing its thing, I'm just going to really roughly shred up some romaine lettuce for my salad. I'm adding in some iceberg lettuce as well, just to give it a little bit more of a sweetness to the flavor. I'm going to do some fresh cucumber and fresh avocado, one of my favorites. Quick tip for you about avocados or any produce is if you look at the little stickers on produce, if you see a number 9 right at the very front, that means it's truly organic. If you see a number 4 or 5 or anything other than a number 9 at the very beginning of the sticker, then chances are it's not truly organic, even if it says it's organic. And that would mean that either the seeds are not truly organic, or the fertilizer they use, or whatever component that they use to grow the produce is not truly organic. Some element of growing that fruit or that vegetable is not truly organic, and you might want to be aware of that when you're trying to have a mostly or all organic diet. So right now I'm just making my own spicy mayo. This is a recipe that is sort of a knockoff of my dad's recipe from when he used to own Japanese sushi restaurants, and he made the best spicy mayo. I can't get it perfectly like he makes it, but it's pretty close. So what I did was take some avocado oil mayo, added a little bit of paprika, added a little bit of cayenne pepper, and I'm right now reaching for the garlic powder. And after that, I'm going to just do a little splash of fresh lemon juice and mix it up, and there you go. Lots of lemon juice on the avocado. Gotta put some on the fish. And the lemon skin I actually save, so I will wrap this up in some tin foil and put it in the fridge or dry it out in the sun the next day. And what I do with that is I cut it into tiny little pieces with some scissors, and I put it into the garbage disposal when I deodorize my sink, along with some baking soda and some vinegar and hot water. Or I can use the shredded up lemon and boil it as part of my stovetop potpourri, or I can throw it into the compost. There's so much that you can do with leftover citrus skins It's amazing. I'll probably do a video on that sometime in the near future, so let me know if that's something you want to see. So now I'm just pouring my spicy mayo dressing all over my salad and enjoy with a cup of chili as well. While my husband and I eat dinner, we usually have Grace do some tummy time, but when she starts solids, we're going to be doing dinner at the dinner table, all three of us, with baby Grace in her high chair, and I'm really looking forward to that. So at this point, it's almost 7 p.m., and that is Grace's nap time, so I'm just doing a diaper change, and we're going to have a warm, full bottle, about 7 ounces, and hopefully she will go to sleep right away. Baby Grace loves to be involved and doesn't want to miss a thing. I'm sure you other mamas can relate. So she's pretty wiggly right before sleep, right before her naps and her bedtime. But once she has her milk, she settles down and she falls asleep pretty easily. Naps are sort of hit or miss as far as staying asleep goes, but once she's down for bedtime, she's out for the rest of the night until about 7 a.m. in the morning. I'm so glad that you were able to hang out with me on my channel and get a glimpse of what a typical Saturday looks like for our little family. And I will see you in the next one. Bye.